Hello everyone, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us today for the Innovation for Cool Earth Forum 9th annual meeting, hosted by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry and New Energy and Industrial Technology Department organization. For the first time in 3 years, despite the continuing influence of COVID-19, this forum is being held in a hybrid format, both in person and online. Now we would like to start the Keynote 3. My name is Rebecca and I'll serve as the MC for this session. This is a previously recorded dialogue between Mr. Francesco La Camera, Director General of International Renewable Energy Agency, and Mr. Tanaka Nobuo, Chair of ICEF Steering Committee.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Today, we have ICEF Innovation Cool Earth Forum 2022 in Tokyo. And we are very much delighted to have Mr. La Camera of IRENA. IRENA is a very important international organization created for the renewable energy development, mainly in emerging economies. So he has a great experience, expertise in this area, and certainly his knowledge and expertise help the ICEF to move ahead in this very difficult time of energy crisis. Mr. La Camera, from your view, the current first global energy crisis, which Fatih Birol of the IEA explained, may have impact to the decarbonization or deployment of the renewable energies in emerging economies.
So first of all, thank you for having me with you. It's a really pleasure and honor to have this talk with you today. Concerning the impact of the Ukrainian crisis on the energy transition, I always try to make clear that could be different, and it will be different in the short term and the medium long term. Unfortunately, there is no doubt that in the short term, this crisis will impact on the energy transition.
Yeah.
We have also seen how last year the CO2 emission have been increasing instead of decreasing. Countries are trying to react to the shortage of gas, using coal plants, trying to get gas from other sources. So this will not impact in a good way to the energy transition at all. But at the same time, what we are assisting at is on increasing understanding that renewable energy is not only good for the environment. It's not only good, as we have demonstrated, to the economic, to the GDP, or socially through the rise of job. But it's also good in terms of resilience and independence. So what we are assisting at United States, this Inflation Reduction Act, for the country is an historical step against climate change.
Right.
If you look at Europe, from 5455 to the renewable power energy in the EU, we have seen that US increased its ambition and put more money for that. We have seen this in India. Japan rose its target to 26% to 46 reduction of CO2 in 2030. So what we think that in the medium and long term, we will assist at an acceleration to the energy transition. If this will be sufficient to be in line with a pathway to achieve the Paris Agreement goal, this is another story. But we are sure that this crisis at the end will accelerate the path toward renewables.
Thank you. Yes, I think Europe is really pressurized by the Russian invasion to Ukraine, and they have to move very quickly toward renewable energy or hydrogen, and in a way, reduction of the carbon, but at the same time, dependency on Russia by using these low-carbon technologies. And they have certainly the wealth to carry out that. U.S. certainly has a very good chance of decarbonizing, even though there are some concerns in the oil sector or automobile sector, etc. But the movement is very much accelerated. But how about the emerging economies? Because they are not rich enough and abundant enough in terms of investing into these renewable energy sources or these low carbon technology, especially in a very, let's say, carbon intensive industrial infrastructures. How can the global community help these emerging economies in the financing, transition financing or technology transfer? What is your view about, especially for these emerging countries?
All these that you mentioned will be useful in supporting the efforts of the developing countries to be in line with the Paris Agreement goals. Naturally, we have pointed out many times, and also the last G20 under the Indonesian presidency made very clear that we need to strengthen the international cooperation if we want to get the result that all we wish. We always say that the Paris Agreement is not at stake in Europe, in the US or in Japan. It's at stake in Africa,
Right.
in Southeast Asia, where we assist to a good pace of growing the economy. So we have to be very careful in intercept and work with this country to build not to fight, to reduce the CO2 emissions, because they have not CO2 emissions significantly.
Right.
We have to prevent the demand of energy that may bring to the rising of CO2 emissions. So we have to work on building a green industrial sector. We have to work on building in those countries the supply chain that may serve the economies in going towards the greening of the energy system. And this will be also a way to diversify the supply chain, the supply chain of renewables, and avoiding new dependencies. Now, I think that it's clear that no one wants the dependency of the past.
Sure.
So this could bring to a new wave of international cooperation that may bring us to this diversification of the manufacturing of what is needed for the energy transition.
Sometimes I have heard that some of the African countries as well as Asian countries, there are some, let's say, a strong indication that they wish to use more natural gas because relatively natural gas is cleaner. So the global, let's say, community try to avoid investing into the fossil fuel, including natural gas. These countries wish that they need to have a kind of transition using the natural gas. But the problem now is that the LNG is getting very, very high priced because of the Russian invasion, and pipeline gas is somewhat eliminated, coming down. So the price of gas is high. So in that kind of situation, it could be even difficult for emerging economies use to full extent the low carbon intensity of natural gas. Do you think there's some way the global community to help these emerging economies to use more potential benefit of the natural gas, or we better stop thinking about it and rather push them to the totally carbon-free energy source?
So first of all, when you talk about gas, you say natural gas. It seems the natural may means clean.
relatively clean.
Gas is a fossil fuel.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And also we have to, when we talk about this topic, we have to set the frame of our discussion. So we all believe in science. Every government say we believe on science, and we have to set policies that are in line on what the science say to us. The science say to us, the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, say that we have to decrease the use of gas starting from 2025.
Correct.
So in 2025 we have to peak. So any kind of solution we wish to facilitate has to take into account this frame if we want to be serious.
Okay.
There is another aspect. Gas and oil are in the developing country, or in Africa, for example, already from 70 years now. And nevertheless, we have 100 million people without access to energy. So making the equation more gas, more people served by electricity is not a true equation.
True.
And sometimes serving or trying to serve the rural population, we may better access with the mini grid of grids and this kind of techniques. So in my point of view, and Africa is also a great opportunity to go straight to a new energy system. Because also in Africa, renewables are more convenient than gas, more economical than gas. Africa is the biggest, the greatest potential for green hydrogen in the world.
True.
So why they cannot jump to the new system instead to stuck in the old system that will put them in the margin? Because the world is going to use these new technologies. If they use the old one, they will widening the gap to the developed world.
I cannot agree more that certainly Africa has a great opportunity of using renewables such as wind or solar in a more decentralized manner, right? Mini grid, etc. And my next point to you is Asia, because Asia already has certain period of development and growth, so they have a huge industrial infrastructure which depends on coal or gas, like coal power plant or cement industry or steel industry. And to decarbonizing this sector is very, very tough. So for them, Japan is promoting the idea of transition financing or transition mechanism like co-firing clean ammonia or clean hydrogen with coal or gas power plant or cement or steel making. So do you think this transition for Asia needs special treatment from financial sector like ADB, Asian Development Bank, that such transitions should be promoted smoothly?
Yeah, but it's not a kind of a special treatment. It's a solution that applies for all the world, and perhaps having special importance for Southeast Asia, because it's on this heavy sector that are very difficult to electrify. That green hydrogen is there to play a role, a very important role, and substituting coal in this endeavor. So I think the move to hydrogen is a very relevant one in that part of the world, and we strongly hope that in this policy of cooperation, Japan may work for adding more green hydrogen in this Southeast Asia.
Blue too.
Yes, we think that blue hydrogen may have a share of the total final energy consumption. There is no doubt. What we have to consider are two aspects, in my point of view. One is that blue hydrogen to be produced need gas plus CCS. And the CCS plant to be implemented, realize it takes 5 to 7 years. So if we start today, we will have the impact of this technology in 2028 and 2029. So very close to the magic 2030. if we go for a green hydrogen one, it will be very fast. Naturally, we can say that today green hydrogen is still not competitive. But the fact is that they're becoming very soon.
Right.
The costs are decreasing, the cost of electrolyzer are decreasing. So in a very short time, green hydrogen will be the solution. So naturally, we need all hands on deck. So everything that will go to the direction of more in hydrogen should be welcome. But we think that green hydrogen at a certain point will take the stage.
Yeah. I believe that IRENA located at Abu Dhabi. So for such countries in the Middle East who are rich in gas or oil may need blue hydrogen as a solution, that they have to avoid stranded assetization of their natural resources. So engaging these countries to the decarbonization for the future, certainly, blue hydrogen may play a role.
Is what we say. So economically, may have, maybe consider the blue hydrogen in the countries that own the reserves. In those countries, blue hydrogen could be a solution.
True.
Still, in a transitional period, that could be a solution. And also, if you mention the Gulf country, UAE is also working in blue, but also on green.
That's true. That's
so
true.
because they have taken in mind the different time frame. So that's something that could be considered. There is no doubt on that.
The United States also moving also CCS very much.
But if you have to import gas for producing hydrogen through CCS, this will be not economically feasible.
I agree.
At all.
I agree. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's better to make hydrogen at the production side of gas, like UAE or Middle East or Australia.
Where are the producer? Where are the owner of the reserve? I think this could be also possible in some part of Canada, in other part of the world. But economically, you cannot import gas and then transform in blue hydrogen.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
By the way, for IRENA, is there any, we talk about lots about hydrogen, but for IRENA, is there a particular innovation or technology which you think may play a very important role for decarbonization?
We at IRENA, we think that we have already the technologies for fighting climate change. Naturally, we don't need new invention, but innovation is still possible for getting more efficient use of technologies that we have. We have identified 30 different ways to optimize the energy system. What we suggest strongly, ask for huge investment in the grid.
Okay, I see.
We need agreement, expanding the grid and renew the grid in all cases, with the transition or not, because the energy demand in many parts of the world is growing. But working for grids that are interconnected among countries, and domestically, ensuring interconnectivity, flexibility, and also building on balancing the system.
True.
That will be the first option that multilateral financial system has to consider when they look at Africa and Southeast Asia.
How about hydrogen pipeline? Because Germany is pushing hydrogen pipeline as a kind of addition to the grid connectivity in Europe, as a more flexibility, because grid is electricity balance of demand and supply should be instant, while gas has some more flexibility in the pipeline. So that's another interesting idea, that to have two different networks to stimulate decarbonization as well as security.
So first, we as IRENA, we came with a report on the trade of hydrogen. And we say that we think that the trade of hydrogen will happen 50% by shipping, 50% by pipeline. So it's up to the countries to have a strategy on the best mix of the two. For example, for Europe has already 5 pipelines linked Europe with the North Africa. They were used for the gas, but with some adjustment, they can be used for green hydrogen. The northern Egypt is also considering the great net, the great net of electricity, so provide for cable to distribute already electricity in Europe.
Yeah.
So we have to see how the market will evolve. Yeah. So we will have the chance of bringing clean electricity through the net to the grid, or we can import through the pipeline gas and then hydrogen and then transform in electricity. And then we can have the option of trading ammonia. Okay. And this means that also the harbor system has to be adapted to this new reality for the stockage, for the stocking of, and also for the conversion of the ammonia into hydrogen.
One of the technology which ICEF picked up as a roadmap is DAC, direct air capture with CCS. Because if the cost of DAC is getting lower, currently it's $1,000, etc. per ton, but if it comes to $100, $150, that certainly is a kind of backstop of the technological innovation necessity, right? So is there, IRENA studied some part of this DAC or BECS or etc. these removal technologies of carbon?
It's something that at a certain moment probably will be needed, that we capture some CO2 in the air. Today, DAC is very expensive, very, very expensive. So we are promoting the pilot of this kind of plant, but I think the industrial use of the technology is still far to come.
Yeah. Next technology which I want your view is that Japan, Prime Minister Kishida is urging Japan to restart nuclear power, shut down nuclear power, because that is theoretically carbon-free, but there's a public opinion very still against after the Fukushima. But now, because of this crisis, public opinion turned more positive. This is the first time that more than 60% of the public support restarting nuclear power. Is IRENA cover? What is your view about the nuclear power?
So first of all, as you can imagine, I wish not to enter into the debate that belong to the to the Japanese citizen and Japanese government. In more general term, as I say you at the beginning of our conversation, we have to set the frame of our conversation, and the frame is science. And science say that if we don't get certain results by 2030, we will never achieve the Paris Agreement goals because of the physics of the climate change. Okay, so if we don't close the budget that we have at disposal, it will be also if we diminish the CO2 emission in 2040, the temperature will continue to rise. So 2030 is there. Is our first landscape. No? Then, if you want to go to build a new nuclear plant, it will take how much long it take?
Yeah, 10 years sometimes, yeah.
More than 10 years.
Yes.
In the average, it takes 14 to 16 years. Naturally, certain countries could be more effective or more efficient. So, building a nuclear plant today will not impact on our 2030
That's true.
So the timing is what it is.
Yeah.
The other concern is the costs.
Yeah.
I've been in Finland recently, where we have the chance to talk with
Olkiluoto, the big plant. Yeah.
And we have the chance to talk about because they've been the last to have a new plant into the grid just this year, and they were not so happy.
I see. The cost increased dramatically, twice or three times than originally planned.
12 years to put the plant in function, and the costs were 3 times higher. That's right. 3 times. Yeah. So at risk that is not so economical as it should be.
Yes, you're right. That's exactly the point. The big current light water reactor is very expensive. It's more than $1 billion US. And it takes time to build it. And only way to reduce cost of nuclear is standardization, building the same type many units. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So I am in favor of more the total paradigm shift of the nuclear to make it more sustainable. Small reactor is much probably better, and also take care of the waste, radioactive waste. This is another problem.
The small reactor, possibly they have an advantage on the waters, in the sense they will not eat waters, as is happened this year in France, where they have a reduction of
shortage of water.
Yes,
to cool down.
Because it to cool down. So this is economically, the small reactor are less convenient than the biggest one.
Yeah, I agree. But if nuclear can survive, that's the only way. That is my business model of building big reactor, just like Old Kyoto or Flamanville of UK, France, or Voto in the United States. I went to see them. All of them just increase the cost and just go out of the economic zone. And IEA recommended only when the cost of nuclear getting down, they can be competitive to produce hydrogen or heat, etc. And no way.
Anyway.
So, well.
Anyway, this is where we are. There is another point that I think that has to be considered. The nuclear plant that has been built in the 70s now is going to be dismissed, decommissioned. So the fact is that a nuclear plant will stay not for a transitional phase, it will stay for 50 years. So what is the sense on investing in an old technology when we have the fusion that is coming on?
Yeah, fusion is another interesting way. New commercial fusion is now getting very popular. Venture capitals put money into it.
Yes, they are investing. I think the first pilot will become in this decade. Yeah. Possibly the first commercial plant will come 2030 or later. Yeah. We have naturally to understand if this will be very successful. So this is another element of concern on the use of today nuclear. But at the end, is in the end of the governments. Naturally, we have to be very clear that the nuclear today is not serving the cause of climate change.
Unfortunately, because the level of the use is so low, and compared to the other sources like coal, oil, gas in the energy mix, nuclear's progress is too poor. Probably something wrong with the current paradigm. That is the reason why, even we stop it now, we have to take care of the waste, spent fuels here. We have to deal with that. So unfortunately, already there's a legacy of the past nuclear production, and we have to deal with that as a country like Japan or France.
For example, France, the Cour français that say that the cost of decommissioning are tremendously high, much more than expected, and they have difficulties to manage all this. So this is another aspect to be considered.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Nakamura, for giving us a very interesting insights. But final question to you is there any special message from Irina or from yourself to the ICEF's discussion this year?
What I should say, I'm trying to say in all forum, also looking at the COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, COP27 and then COP28, that we have to change our way to approach this gathering. So we have to abandon the mood of the negotiation for political declaration with one words more, one comma, other. We have to move to have an approach that brings us to action. We have to action, action, action is what we have to have in front of us. Try to understand where the barriers are, how to overcome those barriers, how we can improve our way to do cooperation. But action is to be in our brain.
Okay.
This is my message.
Thank you very much. That is very good. And certainly ICEF is focusing on what kind of action-oriented innovation we can do, especially toward 2030. Otherwise, we cannot never achieve net zero by 2050. Thank you very much, Mr. Nakamura. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention.